knowledge of being an operator actually helps in being an investor, being an executive, being an advisor. AI is changing a lot in the technology space. It's a topic like I think everybody in this industry is talking about every day or using every day, etc. But the interesting thing is that the space in Mapon, it's more shielded against the disruption that they have. I took the opportunity not to run the business as is. I took the opportunity because I want to use my experience and install sort of the next scaling phase of the company. This company has grown rapidly, but
welcome to QLA's podcast. My name is Christopher Boulait, and this is where we explore winning strategies in business and in life. In our podcast, we talk about investing, we talk about business, entrepreneurship, and even sports. But most of all, we care about the stories that our guests are telling us. And today, we're joined by a true pioneer of the world of entrepreneurship, Siksnans. He went from being a tech guy to building an empire with Draugiem Group. While co-founding Printful, Latvia's first unicorn company, he turned the country into a global entrepreneurial hotspot. Now, as the co-founder and former CEO of Printful, he played a key role transforming the print-on-demand industry. And beyond that, he's been driving force behind numerous successful ventures under Draugiem Group, an organization that has invested in over 100 startups. And now, he's spearheading Mapon, a fleet management SaaS company in Europe and in the Baltics that's redefining logistics and business operations. And his innovation and leadership haven't gone unnoticed, guys. He's been honored with the Latvia's highest civilian award, the Order of the Three Stars. And today, we will dive into his journey, the lessons he's learned, and the key take of future business, technology, AI, and investments. Siksnans is a game changer, a leader, and someone who understands what it takes to push the limits of success. Guys, get ready, because we're not here to talk fluff, we're diving deep. The reason I invited you to the podcast is that I saw your background story, and we've connected multiple times as well. And the things that you've done and how you've done them is way different than a kind of regular, let's say, or an average startup founder has done. But if a person would ask you, what kind of role do you play or what kind of hat do you wear, what would you kind of say it is? Are you an investor, entrepreneur, an executive officer? How would you kind of describe yourself?
I'd say I'm mostly an operator among everything else. So operator and knowledge of being an operator actually helps in being an investor, being an executive, being an advisor, being everything else. So I'm mostly an operator. Like that's what I did most of my professional career. I've operated companies, I led them. So I mostly associate myself with that.
That's really interesting. You've changed the game in Latvia's startup world, basically. You founded and co-founded Printful, which you guys, I don't know if you fully exited as well or not, but you scaled it up to over 1 billion evaluation, which was the first unicorn in Latvia. And I'm guessing it wasn't built overnight anyways, and some early days were tough probably. But what would you say maybe was one of your darkest moments when you thought that this could be kind of the end of it, or what did you tell yourself to push through before any of this happened?
Yeah, Printful's experience is unique in a way. Like unlike most other startups, you mentioned Draugiem Group, so yeah. It's actually I didn't found Draugiem Group. I joined the group. What was 4 or 5 years after we started. The group started now, from today's perspective, 21 years ago. An internet technology company age that's ancient. That's like almost being a dinosaur of some sorts. And I joined the group as a regular employee at a young age of 18. So I started working in a group. But the group is unique in that sense that it was these days you would call it as a venture studio. The group founded over 100 businesses. I was lucky to work on a number of those, and I worked and founded several businesses prior to Printful for 4 years. But unlike a startup that is almost in early days, always constantly kind of few steps or weeks away from death, and that's why startups track the burn rate and how many weeks, etc., they have left until the cash runs out. We actually never experienced crunch like that. So it's in a way unique and less likely. Like I don't share the full experience like other startup founders have did in the past. And the reason is that we started a social network 21 years ago, and that's where the name Draugiem, it means for friends from Latvia, comes from. Same year as Facebook started. And was initially the plans was to scale it also internationally, but ultimately quickly was recognized that it was most successful locally here in Latvia. And that business was profitable, and still to this day is and exists and is profitable, even despite the fact that Facebook and other social media networks have entered Latvia and local market. But the founders invested the profit from that business into other ideas. So in a unique way, we shared money between the business. We shared employees. Like the early business that I worked at, they also kind of did development work and design work and other work for the main money maker, which was the social network. And I joined because it was the coolest and best place to work for a young person who wants to work in technology, which was now 16 years ago. And so when I started Printful, there's a lot of journey and story before that, but let's not get into that right now. We just used capital from Draugiem and employees. And there was that's typical, as you said, like this dark moment where we were on a path of something, major bad happening. And also we were running business as a profitable, sustainable, normal business from the start. The Printful business model is that our customers pay for orders, and only after we receive the money we start printing that. So from cash flow perspective and other risk perspective, it's actually a good business model. So we never faced existential risks. Only like a small part of customers were in post-pay arrangements. And maybe the hardest things was during COVID, but I would say it would be hard for most businesses, and nowhere near it was as challenging as I would be for someone working in the entertainment industry or restaurant industry. So it's not even comparable. But we had to go through the process of not being able to freely travel to our facilities, and actually being forced to close down some facilities that Printful operated, namely our Californian facility, where not all states, not all countries were alike, but California was more strict than other places. So we actually had to close that down. But by then we had diversified risks and we had other factories elsewhere. But so I'd say never in the life cycle of that business we shared something existential and so dark that you, I don't know, get depressed. But there were hard moments, of course, like going through COVID. But COVID was already when we were seven years old as a company. So I had a resilient management team and that I had built. Like it was not like a just brandly new hired startup team that I didn't know. It was a team that we actually went through a lot of scaling before that. So I was also in that sense in a good position. There were some learning curves, maybe in the United States. One of the kind of the less fun aspects of operating the business that mostly operates in the US, you get sued regularly. It's a normal occurrence that happens in the United States. Just the legal system is made that way versus European legal systems, for instance. and it was just annoying distraction that we had to go through. Um, and like I never been sued elsewhere, and none of our businesses, I believe, had any proceedings like that. But just the United States, that was kind of normal, and I really didn't like that. But luckily we had already by then we had good lawyers. We had a good also in-house legal team that kind of shielded me from actually being really hands-on with any kind of legal proceedings. Nonetheless, how serious where they are. Most of these legal proceedings have no grounds whatsoever in most cases. It's just this annoying distraction, uh, mostly designed to extort money from businesses for financial gain. They're just using legal system for that. It's unfortunate. It just works like that, and that's just something to be aware when you do business in US.
It's quite interesting you mentioned that as well. I've noticed when I talk with some of the people that are from United States, they say that yes, we can get a case basically opened with 500 something dollars, or so on and so forth, and we can open the stuff and start to do the legal action and so on and so forth. But in like Europe or in the Baltics, it's quite costly and it takes a long time, and you kind of never know. It's kind of interesting you mentioned that. So that's kind of my reflection that, yeah, it makes sense why it's so common.
It's not the cost factor. It's not the cost factor. Actually, doing anything legal and proceeding to Baltics is way cheaper than the United States. You could maybe start the case with not that much of an investment, but actual proceedings, the ongoing costs of the lawyers are extremely high, much higher than in Europe. And that's why most of the cases in the United States get settled out of the court, because already before court proceedings take a lot of resources and time and money, and usually before you kind of evaluate the factors whether going to court would make sense, your lawyers would prepare you, okay, full litigation actually going to court would cause this and that. Usually that number is like X amount of times higher than you did on pre-court stuff, and it's nowhere comparable to anything that you would see in the Baltics, and that's why most people settle.
Well, now you said it, yes, it makes sense. Reminded me of this TV show Suits as well. A lot of pre-court settlements and so on and so forth. But regarding Printful, to scale it up to about 300 million a year revenue, being the first unicorn in Latvia, basically. How would you say, I've heard you say before that founders should create an MVP and test it with the users, or get paying customers before they start even scaling. I guess the scaling in States is not as easy as some of the European startups think. And sometimes I've noticed, I had a conversation 2 days ago with a startup founder. He said, I want to scale to States, but maybe it's not even feasible. So what's your thoughts on that? Like, should a European startup really position itself to sell in States because the market is bigger, or and secondly, for Printful, was it, when you're thinking back, was it really the best move to go to States, or should you have done it in actually Europe only? Like, if you would.
Yeah, never Europe only, but for that particular business. But the case with Printful is that we started in the United States first. Like, we never actually started in Europe. We entered Europe only 4 years after the inception of the company. So the Europe was the afterthought and additional expansion market. Unlike most startups that originate from Europe, they usually start in Europe and then they expand later in the United States. So for us, it was never a question or discussion about that, because we always were United States first, and even to this day, the company is United States first. And it's the biggest market, and therefore it achieved such a great success and sort of position and in its particular niche in the world, because once you win the United States, the rest of the markets are addition and on top of that, and usually and just an incremental revenue that you would get. And so it's never a discussion, but in simple terms, you would say yes, always go to the United States. It's the biggest market. Like there's just this, everybody knows the statistics. If you can do it, you should do it. But probably there's a lot of answers that differ on a specific niche. There are certain niches that are more developed in one of market or another. So it will largely, again, will depend on a specific case. I'm a CEO of Mapon now, which is a fleet management software. Actually, one of the most valuable companies in the world are in fleet management SaaS space, like Samsara, for instance. But Samsara is US focused, mostly US focused, and Mapon is focused in European markets. And entering one or another market for this particular niche is extremely difficult because we are operating in transport and logistics space, which is a space highly regulated, and there's a lot of things that deal with compliance. And compliance in this space is very different in European markets versus United States. So unlike for a regular traditional startup where they are not limited by regulations or governed by regulations, they can more easily enter one or another market. But should, for instance, Mapon enter the United States, it would be such a fundamental bet that would have to be carefully considered. But going back to the Printful example, it sells T-shirts, and it is an industry, apparel really, and it's a less regulated industry. You send a printed good via mail, it's just less regulations. A T-shirt is large, and the product and the service is largely the same that you offer in the United States versus Europe. Okay, there's different carriers and taxation systems, etc., but you can adjust for that. You don't have to fundamentally change the product for each market. So again, there's pluses and minuses, but of course, even in our space where we currently are, the fleet management software, the largest and the most valuable companies are in the United States. So, but some investors would take a look at that and say, well, maybe the larger opportunities in Europe because it's the market that's currently not dominated, or there's maybe less competition than the United States. So you can maybe be more cost effective with less use of capital. You can achieve similar results, and that's another big characteristic of European startups is like we are more usually capital efficient and achieving very similar results in the United States do.
So you mentioned Mapon already, and and the market expansion, and you just quite a while ago structured a bond as well. If I'm not wrong, it was a 3 million bond structured to acquire new businesses, and you also acquired Car Clubs, if I'm not mistaken, which was one of your competitors. Let's put it like this way. Why did you decide to acquire them? What's your thoughts on expanding the market? Because you've been in multiple industries. Is it better to expand through acquisitions, or it depends purely on the business case and the business model, or it's better to kind of set up marketing, communication structures, legislations, etc., etc. But going back to the Mapon case, why did you decide to acquire them, or was it just a opportunity that it presented itself?
Well, Mapon is an acquisitive company.
Mm-hmm.
I think over the years, company has done over 7 acquisitions. The one you mentioned in Estonia is just one of several. Like we closed another transaction earlier this year in Sweden. There has been transactions in Denmark, Finland, and Lithuania, and other countries, right? So each case is slightly different and unique, but the ultimate factor why we decide to acquire a company is it usually saves us times and resources, time mostly, to expand into new countries. In our space of where our kind of key market is transport and logistics, again, these countries are relatively fragmented, right? You need to have certain adjustments for certain countries. Also, the sales process is localized often. It's usually a high-touch sales process. Like unlike Printful, where we could do a lot of online marketing and advertising, and Mapon's mostly, and an industry as a whole is mostly sales-driven organization. So, for instance, imagine entering Sweden, for instance. It would take us. We can do it organically, but it would take us longer time. So you're often our acquisitions of certain competitors or partners, etc., are driven by time consideration, and there's a lot of other factors in there, but often it's time. Regarding car corps, it was a decision and an acquisition already done before my time, before I was at Mapon. But one of the other factors that we was contemplated in that decision was increasing market share and just being a more important player. Even though the market is Estonia and the market is relatively small, this acquisition did allow us to increase our market share, just to have a higher presence. So same amount of our fixed cost became more dispersed between a higher install base, right? What Mapon does is we track assets, vehicles, and units, right? So we actually were able to onboard, a lot more units, and we use the same resources, the same software, the same technicians and others to operate, and became a bigger market player. And in this case, it was Estonia.
Hey, interrupting you for a quick moment. Let's talk about deals because not all deals are created equal. Some are noise, overhyped, undervetted, and destined to burn capital. And then there are the real opportunities, the ones that are built on deep due diligence, strategic positioning, and an edge. It's just others don't see coming. That's where we operate. We don't just scan deals; we dissect them. From financials, technology, operations, legal, every angle, every risk, every hidden play. From startups all the way to commercial real estate and infrastructure investments, we bring private equity firms, venture capital firms, family offices, and professional investors opportunities with real upside and minimized exposure because you just can't find them in your inbox. But if you know where to look and who to talk to, they're yours for the taking. I just met a startup that had a great team, full of promise, it was scaling fast, 8 million ARR, and investors want to get it. On paper they look all good, but when we looked into it, we saw the surface. We know it's might be a disaster. But that's what we do. We tear deals apart. We find the cracks before they become sinkholes. By the time the deal reaches our table or our contacts table or investors table, the question isn't if it's good, the question is who gets the moon first. But if you like your investments clean, simple, and spoon-fed, this is not for you. But if you're looking for real deals, real intelligence, and real results, you know where to find us. Let's get back to the video. Quite interesting. You also mentioned Sweden as well. No, I'm not that familiar with Swedish market in this space, and I'm aware of like what Bolt has done and so on and so forth in the whole Europe, and Uber as well, dominating in the United States. But it's a bit different industry, right? It's more a SaaS kind of industry. But I've heard many different things. Now I don't know if they're true or not, but LinkedIn is full of this that the game of e-commerce and SaaS is changing because AI is implementing here and there. How do you guys see it as a technology advantage that you guys have right now in the marketplace? And secondly, do you plan to kind of automate some of the things or do some, route optimization, real time tracking? Maybe you guys already have it. I've not tested the app, so that's why I'm asking, or the platform, and that's why I'm asking, like, how do you guys plan to innovate with technology and kind of create more disruption, let's say, in the marketplace?
AI is changing a lot in technology space. It's a topic I think everybody in this industry is talking about every day or using every day, etc. But the interesting thing is that the space in Mapon, it's more shielded against the disruption that AI makes. In a way, Printful is as well. I mean, Printful is, for instance, a scale business. You're more competitive with scale, with factory, the amount of you do, and although AI will have some impact, maybe in areas of quality control and others, and in printing, at the end of the day, there's still going to be people and apparel, etc., involved to make the product. So in a way, the AI cannot disrupt the whole thing. And on the other hand, while Mapon is a software as a service company, we're a hardware-enabled software as a service company. Our product works when we receive telematics data either through our own proprietary devices or third-party devices, or these days even some of the OEM telematic sensors from the vehicle. And again, it operates in a physical space. We track assets for customers who deliver cargo, who deliver food, etc. So their businesses are unlike to be disrupted through AI, versus, like, for instance, how writing and education and lawyers and things like that are disrupted. So in a way, it's a better competitive position to be against AI. So the biggest challenge in applications with AI for a company like Mapon is actually just internal use for increased productivity for every single person working at Mapon. Like every other company, we have people who are really, really good at this. But my goal as a CEO is actually to achieve close as possible to 100% adoption among our employees, and adoption every day. And that's something I'm striving for. That's the biggest thing is right now is actually internal employee use for increased productivity, so we can deliver on behalf of our customers. The next step of course will be client applications, but that factor in our industry is more less kind of groundbreaking things that is going to come like other industries. There are applications. For instance, we have camera telematics, so video telematics. So there's a lot of there's a trend in industry where more companies put cameras on their vehicles and tractors, agriculture, for instance, equipment, etc. And that creates a lot of data, a lot of information to be processed. And of course, it's ineffective for a person to do it, and now AI comes in place that helps to do it. And some of that AI is already hosted and physically, exists on a camera device itself. So there are applications like that. I think one of the other factors that will come is that IoT, Internet of Things, it's more generally referred as a space where Mapon operates. We have a lot of data coming from various sensors in our customer vehicles and other assets we track. And a lot of historically, they would create reports, we would create reports, and the person needs to make sense of those reports. And actually, based on that data, they have to then arrive at certain decisions they have to do regarding their vehicles, fleets, drivers, etc. I think AI will help to make that decision, because the amount of data that the customers can gather about their fleets is it's a lot. It's awesome. So the AI will help to process that data faster. So and that's one of the areas in a kind of general sense we want to work towards for.
Mm-hmm. So did I kind of hear that correctly? It's more on how can we process data, how can we filter this, how can we segment this, label it so it would be in the right places so people could make the right decisions, and then maybe get some suggestions from kind of AI as well, how to optimize the workflow, or how the client can optimize the workflow of deliveries and so on and so forth. Kind of that. Okay, yeah. It's well, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out, like how the technology evolves. What do you think about airports in that sense of using this, technology? Because it seems that the clients care about when they're updated real time. Let's say the plane is delayed, right? So they say, okay, there's a flight is going to be delayed. We have an update in 10 minutes and 20 minutes and so on and so forth. But when your, let's say, luggage doesn't arrive on time, right, then you have no idea most of the times, let's say, I don't know, in Spain, some of the airports, you have no idea when it's going to come. So how do you see it can help the airports in such a way that, you know, their system, your platform, let's say, you're optimized and your business case is more for fleet management, but can it help airplanes, airports, that's such of kinds as well, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, Mapon works with ground transport. So we work with transportation vehicles. So each airport would use vehicles that do work on a runway, right? You need to track hours, energy usage, etc. We don't really track luggage per se, or of course we don't track planes, and it's not necessary. They have their own systems and methods. Luggage tracking, it's just a simple problem, and for consumer applications, there are air tags and similar technologies. Where Mapon operates and focuses more is more in heavy industries, right? So um, more specialized tags, more heavy duty tags that are not air tags, right? Air meaning the batteries would be larger, they would sustain much longer periods of time, they would sustain much harsher climate conditions. For instance, in Northern Europe, where we're at, there's cold, extreme cold, and we need tags, similar like air tags, that could be added to an accessory on our asset you want to track that can withstand relatively extreme conditions, minus, I don't know, 25 Celsius degrees, for instance, in some of the instances. So we were more focused on that and not on the consumer applications like trucking a luggage. I think Apple AirTag would do a pretty good job on it. And Mapon is more squarely focused on B2B applications. So our clients could be an airport, but they would track all their cars that do their work on a runway, and tracking who drives those cars and at what hours. We know a lot of airports run longer hours than a typical workplace. So you need to track that your drivers work certain shifts, who are driving, etc. And we have a lot of solutions around that that helps track work time for employees. So that's where we're focused more than occasional lost luggage.
Quite interesting, because the last time we spoke, I think you were not in the role of the Mapon CEO, right? You were mostly managing the investments, sourcing deals, etc., finding great ventures where to allocate research to. Why did you decide to take the challenge? Even though you said you're a great operator, and I've heard from some of your previous podcasts that you were always this IT guy and internet and fascinated by coding and etc. But why did you take the challenge of spearheading this organization, and how was the thought process leading up to this, basically?
It's a unique situation because Mapon is also a Draugiem Group company. So the same uh, co-founders, same owners who operate Printful, where I worked for 10 years, is the same guys that I also built this relationship with that own Mapon. So I was a non-executive director for Mapon on a supervisory board as well for 4 years. So I knew the business. It was the business that was always growing along the side of Printful in a completely different space and a sector of economy, but I was always very familiar with that. So that was one advantage, that it was not a complete risk in an unknown of a business. But ultimately, it was the shareholders who ran through their process and offered me a position. From their perspective, I've helped and delivered them a unicorn company, so there was a track record. Uh, we worked together both on Printful and other companies, and also in investing for Draugiem Capital. So there's a lot of built history together that made the decision, I think, easier on both sides. From me trusting these particular shareholders, and from them, the shareholders trusting me as a CEO, and that's an important factor. I think you can make mistakes on both aspects. Let's say you are a qualified and experienced operator, but you don't really know the shareholders. Like as a CEO role, you have your people that you report to, and they are your shareholders, right? So, and usually it's very difficult to understand what's going to be the working relationship. It was not the challenge in my case. And same on other end, right? The shareholders don't know that new CEO is going to be, and you kind of entrust the entire company in the hands of that person. So it was a de-risked decision on both sides, and on a maybe personal level as well. Like as you mentioned, I'm a technology person since as long as I can remember myself. And from all industries in technology space, the SaaS is sort of the holy grail that everyone wants to work at. And I did found a SaaS company also in a group more than 14 years ago or something like that, called Desktime. But after that, I had to switch and work on Printful full time because I couldn't juggle multiple companies at the same time as a CEO. And it was another interesting factor that really attracted me to Mapon, which is a SaaS subscription company. It's an opportunity to work in a company like that. And I didn't get to fully see that journey through the first time around this Desktime, and now I can do that. And additionally, this is a scale-up company. This is a Series A plus company that has over 200 employees in 7 locations. So it's actually in sort of this nice size where it's not too big and bureaucratic as a large corporate, but it's also not a startup where it doesn't have resources to do bold and interesting things and even acquire other companies. So, all these factors that just made it a really compelling opportunity.
Makes sense. It reflects to me that you're really good at scaling things and scaling businesses, but as a leader in the company, you've not been in a position in the CEO position for like tens of years in Mapon, but so far in the short span of time, what do you think that has been the most uncomfortable or most toughest decision that you had to make, and something that maybe made question your own abilities, or how did you kind of go through it? Or maybe there wasn't any tough decisions because the company, you kind of, let's say, took over in that sense, or people trusted you to spearhead this.
Yeah, the company is in a great, again, industry, as I said. So it's a well-oiled machine that is chugging along as is. A lot of SaaS businesses are. That's why the SaaS businesses are so extremely coveted by investors, because you are running these subscriptions. So there was no like existential risk, which worried me at any point during this decision. I took the opportunity not to run the business as is. I took the opportunity because I want to use my experience and install sort of the scaling phase of the company. This company has grown rapidly, but it has grown over 19 years, right? So unlike a quick startup, this is a 19-year-old SaaS company. During the 6 months, I set up the necessary processes, team, etc., to ready the company for the next growth stage. I have certain experience, right, with Printful, and Printful was larger in terms of revenues and in terms of company size. It operated its own facilities, and it was in more countries, so there was about 2,000 employees.
Wow.
At the time when I left. So there's a lot of factors that I see how company operated at a higher scale, etc. And I'm readying in a way Mapon for that. But at the same time, trying and focusing to finding out the new scalable channels, how we can scale the company to the next level. One of the hires I did on my executive team within the first few months was Chief Growth Officer that I worked with for 7 years at Printful. So I hired Raitis. We had a good working relationship prior to that, and I'm trying to build the next scalable growth channel for Mapon, and I needed the person like that. So in some instances, we had to change team members, like in this case, and then we had to have a new growth officer. That's never easy, but it's necessary, to realize the vision. And that's what happens when new management comes in. Either it's a top management like CEO, or even it's a team manager. You make certain personal changes in most cases. Actually, Mapon had a good strategy already in place. I didn't have to make a lot of changes there, and I was also involved as a non-executive director in defining that strategy. But mostly it was factors about internal operating processes that I'm changing and upgrading to methods that I see fit to enable that next growth phase.
So we've talked about growth and scaling, and it's good that you mentioned it, that you're in a position where you can grow the company in a good manner, basically, whatever the target is. And I didn't ask you that one, but for a personal level as well, achieving those things is never easy, as I can imagine. What would you say has been kind of your 2-3 secret sauces, or your all the how do I say, tactical or strategy plays that has helped you to achieve success? Or what's your kind of principles that you follow truly that is helping you?
I mean, there are factors how I operate, of course, but there's also a tremendous amount of luck that was involved. Me joining the right group at the right age. I joined it because my cousin worked here before me, and there was a referral, as often happens in professional environments, etc. But there is not going to be a single factor that works for each person in each business. But one thing I try to keep of myself and my teams around me is just doing quality work, and I do it because I want always to be proud of my work and the companies that I was involved in, the way they perform, etc. A lot of people are just not that motivated by that factor. They don't have the same quality criteria. So it's surrounding yourself by people like that, having people like that within your company helps. And again, the huge success can only, of course, be attained by large amounts of people and team around you, right? And both Mapon and Printful before that, there's hundreds and thousands of people that actually help me and the companies succeed, right? So it's not a single factor, right? So a lot of factors is mostly, the team members around there. And besides just caring about quality work and execution in every day, even, I don't know, conducting great internal meetings is important. Not to say that always, client-facing communication, etc., needs to be top-notch. Also, hiring people who are, constant learners and want to learn about new things. That's why before and now we asked in interviews what they read, what they listen to podcasts, and etc., and how they actually actively are trying to make themselves more professional. In addition to that, historically, you could say you read books, you read blogs, you professionally develop yourself in these ways. Now is the questions like, how do you use AI, and do you use that in every day and regularly? And so, for instance, right now it would be very difficult to consider a person to be hired if that person is AI skeptic. Like that's, and we have still a lot of those in our economies, right? In our even technology sector, there are people who are skeptics, and and you can't really hire people like that anymore. Technology companies, if you want to be forward looking and etc. So there's a lot of those, but ultimately it's a little bit of the things I do, and a lot of the things that my team and people around me, and luck.
So I have to be really lucky then to build the same business if I would like to have the right dominoes fall in the right place, basically. But
you can increase your luck by trying a lot of times, right? So Draugiem Group tried 100 times in launching businesses. Sometimes simply they talk about Printful, we print t-shirts and other print products, right? So it doesn't ultimately strike as crazy, big business, but since it was done in the United States, we were the first mover in the printing for e-commerce, and apparel is a huge industry. It ultimately resulted in such a big business, right? Like Mapon's even older than than print, and they're just operating in a different industry. So the success there was, on a different time pass.
So in order to be the first mover, you mentioned being the first in that space, there's probably a lot of research and business feasibility and vetting to be done to even, find that idea. Or for you guys, was it more of like, nobody's kind of doing it, or, we just stumbled upon it, and how did it kind of play out in your sense? Or you really, really vetted the thing and you were like, okay, is this shit real, basically?
There was no research, so most of the business ideas that the group worked on, including Printful and others, not all of it, but most of them came of solving your own problems. And we were doing also a little more traditional businesses and consumer-orientated products. So I ran a consumer brand called Startup Vitamins before Printful. And we were selling posters, and we were printing them ourselves with startup quotes, like move fast and break things, and quotes similar to that. And we just had a need for a product like Printful that would do printing on behalf of us for various print products, and also would integrate with our backend at the time, which was Shopify. So there was no real research, but the main kind of insight was the fact that if we need this as Startup Vitamins as a brand, at the time on the platform we were running on, which was Shopify, there was already 100,000 stores. Certain percentage of those store owners would be interested in something like Printful. And that was our insight. We set out to build Printful based on that insight. And we never kind of defined the addressable market or any of that. Like, we knew that there's just going to be enough stores, and the business could be a healthy business. We never thought of reaching 300 million, etc. by the time I left. I think we were thinking, maybe 1 million. And then, a couple of years later, that we were doing, 10, 20 million. We said, let's set a big, hairy, audacious goal, which is a term in the industry, sometimes in startup industry. And let's do 100 million. 2 years we were there. We reached 100 million US dollars. But it was never designed that way, or we never focused on that. Initially, we were just really executing on behalf of our customers, and the whole industry was growing around us.
Mm-hmm. So multiple kind of puzzles kind of came together in that sense, in order to make this thing work as well. I had a question in my mind before I even asked this question. It was more on like you mentioned surrounding yourself with the great people or people who kind of, not hold you accountable per se, but more on, okay, do they have the quality and the mentality basically of working in a similar or particular manner. But do you have any, maybe so two simple question, do you have any role models that you model things from, or it's more like how can I be better?
I think I find it valuable to read books and read and learn and watch experience of other people, including entrepreneurs. I think most startup founders and CEOs have read the book on about Amazon and Jeff Bezos' story. Have read the Steve Jobs book. Read about Elon Musk as well these days as well, and I find it valuable for maybe each leader. You can take a thing or two, but there's no singular person that I've learned to. You can also learn from other industries. You can learn from actors and Arnold Schwarzenegger, for instance, the Netflix.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, that was great. And he spanned from an athlete to a politician to a business person, etc. Like initially, Arnold made more money in real estate than maybe other sectors, and there's a lot of learnings in there. And even politicians, again, Netflix it was, but there was recently a documentary about Winston Churchill and his work during a crisis in World War II, and I found it valuable as well. So you can learn from those, and in terms of books, sometimes when I'm reading those books, I'm taking photos of certain pages, uploading them to, let's say, Google Drive and sharing with the team and seeing and discussing. And I'm constantly thinking about, okay, I read how, let's say, Amazon did this thing, and I'm immediately thinking about how we could potentially apply that historically to Printful and now to Mapon. So that's another factor, not just merely consuming that content for entertainment purposes. I'm thinking about how to apply it and making notes and actually taking action of applying it.
We have one of our favorite questions, or one of my favorite questions, and everybody answers differently. It means different things for everybody. But what does the word winning or to win mean to you?
I'm not too obsessed about definition of those words. I think it also evolves. Like maybe when I was younger, I had maybe a different mind of what does winning mean than today. But again, I'm just care about the quality of things I do, and that applies not just quality of professional work, but also like the privately and my private life and etc. Just try to really, things do diligently, right? Just and that's something that is maybe thing that I can connect in a way to being successful. And again, like just after working and having the fortune that aspect of having worked at Printful and etc. It's like now you have to extend definition of success definitely to anything that's going privately and things like health, etc.
It's an answer I have never heard before, so that's quite interesting. We asked from this somewhat of a tradition as well, that we asked from our previous guests some of the questions, but they never know who's the next guest gonna be, right? And our my last guest was the director of Tallinn's Transport, Kaido Padar. And his question, even though he didn't know who's gonna be the next guest, his question was, what did you do today to be better? Or what have you done so far today to be better?
I did some prep work. I think like I had a couple of meetings, including this recording as well. So it's a prep work. Again, on the topic being diligent, even today within an era of AI, I still see people doing sloppy work. Like I don't know, even like your email, your cover letter, your task, either applying for work or just doing work is uh, hasn't, and I'm still surprised that that work hasn't seen the eye of the AI. It's like, and there's almost no excuse in these days to be that. Maybe like 10 years ago, I was like, oh, this person didn't even use Google to research the company they are applying or the customer, etc. Today, it's hey, they haven't used AI, they haven't done the prep work, they didn't use spell check, etc. There's no excuses around that these days. So maybe something I did today as well is I did prep work for various meetings and other things I have to do in my professional life.
Hmm. That's a good answer. More intriguing one, because I know our time is kind of ending here as well. You built a reputation for success, definitely with Printful. Right now, leading Mapon, and other ventures as well, because like you mentioned, you guys have invested into over 100 startups before, and acting as a venture studio and building up companies, and driving this ecosystem, especially in Latvia. Have you ever felt like an imposter or imposter syndrome?
To an extent, yeah, as well. Yeah, it's something you have to personally overcome as well. But it could be that way. It's again, it's important also to stay humble. Rather you feel that imposter syndrome or be humble than the other way around. They just have too much of a high ego and do be obnoxious, etc. But yeah, it's sometimes difficult. I've done also interviews like let's in US, and I think was once in US television, and that was maybe some of the moments like what I'm doing here. Like I'm a person from a small town in Latvia, like Teisis, and as Estonian, you might have heard about it. And now I think I was in San Francisco television on a morning show talking something about T-shirts, and it was a humbling moment, etc. And that felt a bit like that, And I was also quite young, right? Right now I'm in my 34, but I started Printful when I was 22. So doing some of these things at that young age was also something to reflect on.
But you hit the Forbes under 30 list as well, and you had received the Latvian highest civilian honor as well, which was the 3 stars. I don't know how to say it in English, but yeah. What keeps you up at night right now, and what's your kind of like biggest motivator?
One of the things also that attracted me about Mapon opportunity was the fact that it was a success that Printful had. It was very focused in the United States, and like there was a lot of business trips. We had several facilities in various states uh, in the United States, and after a while, I ended up doing it for 10 years. I wanted to spend more time in Latvia and work on something more impactful here as well. One of the biggest factors that I really liked on at Printful was developing the team. But like I developed that team is very stable. Like I'm one of the proudest things I was there. Not just receiving the unicorn status, but also building that team. Like I had entry level people hired in earlier stages of the company's life cycle that became executives. That's what was on my management team. And now what also motivates me is Mapon is as well continuing to develop those people around me, sharing that again experience that I had maybe Printful and other companies since the team here at Mapon, seeing how they change and and maybe take some of the learnings and adjust the ways they work. Like for instance, I was just talking about like AI use and being diligent. Like I do, some of the people, I don't do enough like direct feedback, but I don't shy away from it in company settings and etc. And it's good to see that like, hey, this person that was at Mapon, let's say 10 years in some instances, operated in this way, and then we had a meeting, etc. There was feedback, etc. And now he quickly took up from some of the learnings and suggestions I did, and now he operates in a different way and uses methods and processes, and not just AI, but just different higher level methods and processes of doing their work, be that sales work, be that manager, etc. So again, continue like developing people, and through developing people, the company succeeds, and then the company succeeds, the environment around the company succeeds, right? Something that still motivates me as well, as I said, those ex-Printful employees who are still there at the company, but also in other companies, and they are changing these other companies for the better. And again, the economy and the community around it benefits.
It's really nice to, I like that that you said that you wanna create this impact, not only within your organization, but the fact that other people that worked or are in other organizations right now that are kind of helping and growing the economy or the companies. Yeah, I will ask you later on the question for our next guest, but I wanna thank you so much for actually participating and coming and sharing your story and how you build up these companies and what your plans are, and how Mapon is not even disrupting, but kind of growing and scaling and helping companies which have robust problems in that sense. What's the best way that people can reach you or ask you some of the advices on business or entrepreneurship?
It's LinkedIn. Best, still the best thing for professional aspects, and you don't need an email, and these days emails change.
Yeah.
So it's LinkedIn. Find me there.
Lovely. Thank you, Davis, for coming, and for watchers or the subscribers and the ones that are listening, the audience. Share a comment down below as well. What was your one of the biggest takeaways? And please feel free to reach out to Davis if you have some questions about entrepreneurship or how to scale really a business to a billion level.